On November 4th and 5th, 2023, 30 people from 15 organizations gathered in Rapid City, South Dakota, to attend Lithium Mining and the Climate Crisis in the Black Hills. The Green Energy Revolution Hits Home, a conference hosted by Black Hills Clean Water Alliance, a regional nonprofit group. The goal? To create solutions for two of the most difficult environmental issues the region faces: a lithium mining rush in the face of minimal state regulations, and the climate crisis, which is already having clear impacts in the area. One proposed solution from the U.S. government to combat the climate crisis is to shift from fossil fuels to electric vehicles in a misguided and short-sighted attempt at creating a green energy transition. In response, a number of lithium mining operators and projects have sprung up in the Black Hills in the past 2 years. Mining is one of the largest single contributors to carbon emissions worldwide, thus increasing the severity of the climate crisis. Bottom line, if electric vehicles using lithium batteries are to lead the green energy revolution, then that revolution is not very green. The conference stepped into this conflicted landscape. These are some of the highlights of what happened.
So the main map shows the active mining claims. When we say active, we don't mean that they're actually digging or anything, but they are active within the Bureau of Land Management system. So right now, this map is showing 293,000. If you look on our website, I've got the maps each time that we get them updated. That number just keeps going up and up and up. Now, we all know that the Hassapa is treaty territory under the 1851-1868 Fort Laramie Treaty. Those treaties are broken. So this goes across lines, you know, in treaty territory, in our indigenous nations, we have no boundaries. Just like water has no boundaries. Like, where can you put that line, stop water? You're not going to stop water. I mean, it goes all over. So we are one and the same in Turtle Island. So I just want to give you kind of a background, historical Homestake Mine. This is that open cut up in Lead. It's 1,200 feet deep and a half of a mile wide. Then you got the gilt edges. The abandoned gold mine turned into a federal Superfund site, acid rock drainage. Now, right now, that gilt edge is being managed by not only the state, but also Agnica Eagle, which is a Canadian company. And now those federal lands will be turned over to the state, so they don't have to go through stringent permitting processes like the federal government does. The state will just say, yep, you got that, you can go ahead and start mining again. So why are we doing this? Because we are under attack. The Black Hills is under attack from mining industries.
So this is what we don't want as far as lithium mining coming to the hills. This is the Wharf gold and silver mine, but the lithium projects they're talking about would be open pit mines, so it would at least look somewhat similar to this in terms of the topsoil and trees being stripped away.
Lithium mining in the Black Hills increases the climate crisis and damages our area's water, economy, health, welfare, and the safety of our communities and future. Dr. Lilias Jardine, Executive Director for Black Hills Clean Water Alliance, presented on current mining activities and climate impacts in the Black Hills.
So a lot of people think the climate crisis is just that everything's going to get warmer. So when we have a cold day, they say, well, there's no climate crisis. but it's actually things like more extreme weather worldwide, which I'll talk about locally in a minute, changes in the seasons. I used to live by Fargo, North Dakota in the 80s, and since then the summers are longer. They can measure that the summers are longer. In the last 25 years, there's been a noted increase in tornadoes. But it's not just that there are more tornadoes. There's even by another order of magnitude more injuries from those tornadoes, more fatalities from those tornadoes, and more property damage.
Mining in the Black Hills threatens an entire area held sacred by indigenous nations across the Great Plains, and which also includes specific sites that are critical to Lakota ceremony, culture, history, sustenance, and life cycles.
The Great Plains Tribal Water Alliance supports the proposed withdrawal of the Rapid Creek watershed from mining activities under the 1872 General Mining Act. The withdrawal should be a period for not less than 20 years. The watershed to be withdrawn contains a wealth of historic properties and traditional cultural properties, and they should be surveyed in close consultation with the tribes, the Tribal Historic Preservation. You know, from my vision and my scene of the years with the Black Hills, all the development, mining, and then the state's big influence on federal land, on treaty land. Has there been one effective cultural survey done? I haven't seen it. That's what they're afraid of. They know that we do one good survey. This is sacred land.
If we are to be effective in organizing ourselves against the dangers of mining in Hisapa, we cannot fail to recognize that focusing solely on environmental health is not enough. Whether or not we're aware of it, anti-mining work is landback work. Because the 1872 General Mining Act is a targeted violation of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, I believe that successfully removing the boot of mining from our necks makes the honoring of our treaty rights inevitable. But if what we ultimately wish to do is end the war with a victory for Unchimaka, to finally win, Landback is the path. It's also my personal belief that unraveling the tangled knot of racist and illegal mining policy in this country is a path to Landback. Which is why in 2019, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published a report calling for indigenous traditional ecological knowledge to be the guiding framework of mitigating and remediating the climate change crisis, meaning how to survive the climate change crisis. And the Fort Laramie Treaty, as was brilliantly put to me by a colleague of mine, was the original climate change document. So if we want to survive drought, if we want to survive climate change, if we want to be able to drink clean water and breathe clean air and grow clean food, Landback.
Also in the data, when we were arguing the same issues, this Rosemont issue. Click, slide. This was the Mount Hope molybdenum mine case. We actually got that one vacated. So the court said, hey, yeah, they didn't validate the mining claims. You can't put your waste rock, and everything near these spring areas because you haven't validated them. And so I'm going to remand this back to the BL and vacate the permit. But whenever we talk about, well, shouldn't the community be aware of all the consequences of them? Shouldn't they have a right to know? Regulators like, well, yeah, I guess so. A mining company's like, well, yeah, I guess so. So what I'm saying is this principle is something that they can't argue against. Why shouldn't affected communities know, have full information? And so we feel like this is a step in a direction of getting better permitting and a step towards FPIC. At least it's important for directly affected communities to share the experience. I think this kind of gatherings, sharing across the country, across the world is really, I think, really important. What's happening in your area? What did they try to pull on you? Because the idea is that the company will say, well, it's just those locals that are being, that sort of NIMBY concept. They're trying to pit one community against another. Well, you mean it should go somewhere else. So when we were first looking at Thacker Pass, we were worried about this a little bit because, well, if we push back on Thacker Pass, does that mean that other places in the world are going to get more pressure? We were worried about that. And because we were part of a larger discussion, including people from other countries, what they said to us, people in Chile, people in Europe and Spain and Portugal said, no, if you think there's something wrong with that project, by you opposing it, that helps us because that gives us strength to say no in our area if we think that there's something wrong. So that communication was really important for us moving forward in this project because we were worried about that.
Like all mining, lithium mining threatens water, landscapes, cultural resources, wildlife, and human health and safety. There are alternatives to lithium mining, such as battery manufacturing process changes, reduction in resource use, conservation, and recycling. Ellen Moore from Earthworks discusses these alternatives in her presentation, Understanding the Global Lithium Boom and the Alternatives.
Sort of the main premise of the campaign is that clean energy cannot be built on dirty mining. And when we're talking about a more equitable and responsible minerals future, we're talking about a just energy transition. And so for Earthworks, that means we work to oppose moving directly from a fossil fuel dependence to hard rock mineral dependence. So we can't replace one harmful form of extraction with another. We can't shift the harm from one group of communities that are on the front lines of oil and gas, or like someone said before, to maybe urban communities that are dealing with tailpipe pollution, to communities on the front lines of lithium, nickel, cobalt, or copper mining. Pieces here is reducing the size of EV batteries, and then in turn reducing the size of EVs themselves. So smaller vehicles that require smaller EV batteries and have a smaller mineral and carbon input footprint. They're lighter and they're more efficient. And so finally, turning back to a positive, the takeaway from all of these pieces together is that if we implement best case recycling, which depends on building better batteries, and we have smaller car sizes, so we have smaller EVs, the Climate and Community Project report, the scenarios that they've run, says that we can reduce lithium demand by 92% by 2050. So that's why I say, IEA says we have to, 500% more lithium in order to meet the demand. There's lots of ways that we can reduce the demand for new mining, and we can get lithium that's needed for the renewable energy transition in different ways. And there's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of barriers, there's a lot of policies that need to be put into place, hurdles and unknowns, but it is possible to dramatically decrease the demand for lithium and to dramatically decrease the need for new mining.
Lithium mining is not part of the green future, and we can't mine our way out of a climate crisis. One solution alone cannot fix the complexity of this growing problem. The solutions must come from the processes, companies, and the areas that have contributed to the climate crisis. In other words, from all communities, including ours. The outcome of the conference was a hopeful one. Plans were made and organized, and a declaration was drafted. We declare our resolution to work together to both reduce climate change's impacts and halt lithium mining in the Black Hills. We call on all residents of the Black Hills to work with us to protect our common home and to recognize water as a living being that must be protected. We call on all people across Lakota Treaty Territory and beyond to support these efforts to protect water. We hope you will join us.